Hello, and welcome back to the Everyday Writer. I'm flying solo this week this time because my cameraman is at his dad's this weekend, and so I kind of struggled figuring out what to do. I didn't even know how to get the phone on the tripod, but I figured it out and I did it. So this is my second ever YouTube video, and I'm learning a lot. I learned that last week, if you are going to try and do a green screen, don't also wear a green dress. So as I was trying to be all tricky and do the green screen thing, the first background I did was this really cool kind of sunset type thing. But because I was wearing a green dress, I just looked like this benevolent god in the sky and everything. And so I tried a couple of other backgrounds and it just wasn't working. And so that way, if you notice, I just made it like black and white, or there was a specific thing of what it was, but like I just thought it was black and white. So hopefully that worked out okay. Like I said, I'm still learning a lot. But anyway, I am just, checking in to see how everybody's doing on the 30-day writing challenge. I have been writing every day as well. And I'll say it's been interesting. Like, I don't know. So on my other social media channels, on Blue Sky, the Everyday Writer, and Pinterest, also the Everyday Writer, I have I posted about how I was, I'm very type A, so I like schedules, which I do. And so I was like, well, I'm going to put writing in my schedule at 6 o'clock, and I'm going to write at 6 o'clock every night. And that's what I'm going to do. Well, as parents, everybody knows that's always what happens. So if you had a plan and it didn't go to plan, it happens. And so that's kind of what it was for me. Like Wednesday, the first day of the challenge on April 1st, I ended up not being home at 6 o'clock. We were doing other things. And so we got home, I got dinner, I got all that good stuff. And then I wrote. And then the next day, again, things happen. And unfortunately for me, no matter how hard I try, things happen and my schedule gets interrupted and it makes me upset and my OCD is like, why? But you work around it and, there's that. So mine went pretty good. I actually got a lot written. I've been posting on my other social media channels, writing prompts every day, if you needed some inspiration. But also then again, I said, you can write whatever you want. You can write just like write on the same story every day, like I've been doing, or you can write a journal or anything like that. And so, one thing I did notice that shouldn't be like this, but it was for me, is with this challenge. And I'm also doing this social media campaign for a class. And so it's also homework for me. And so I realized that with this challenge and it being homework, it made it so I didn't feel guilty taking time out to write. Because usually if I'm taking time out to write, that means I feel guilty. It's like I should be doing something else. I shouldn't be doing this right now. I should be doing other homework. I should be doing this or that, the other, but knowing it was part of the challenge and part of my homework, I was just able to do it and not feel guilty and actually like, okay, no, I'm going to do this, which is honestly very sad because we shouldn't have to have something like that in order to not feel guilty to take time out for ourselves. Like that's what this whole campaign is about, is taking time out for yourselves to do self-care. And for me in this context is writing and everything. And so you shouldn't have to feel guilty for doing that. And so that's one of the things I'm going to work on, is not feeling guilty and doing it anyway, even if it's not part of a challenge or it's not part of homework or anything like that. So anyway, I wanted to share what I've written this week, and I actually wrote a lot more than I thought I have when I was printing it out. But anyway, so I have been writing this story it's not like a regular book. I have it set up as like a TV show where like each part, so to speak, is an episode, and the entire book is like made up of 12 episodes. So this is the very first one. I've started kind of in and out because I have the whole thing in my head and everything. But yeah, so this is what I've been working on. I wanted to share it with you guys, and then encourage you guys to share yours as well, whether on social media, on the comments of this, or my other social media channels, or just posting something of your own. That would be great. Like I would love to hear what you have to say and what you've written. So anyway, so I've started this. It's called The Beginning. That this episode is called The Beginning. The entire thing is called I don't know if I've changed it or not. Anyway, I started out with it being called Last Ditch Effort. But I'm not sure if that's what's going to be stayed. I'm not sure how I feel about that right now, so that might change. But anyway, so it's the beginning. Colonel Vaatu Vaka stared down at the empty room that was about to be filled with his new team. He had deliberately put himself on desk duty for the past 2 years, but the higher-ups had evidently thought he was more useful elsewhere. Thing was, he didn't want to be more useful elsewhere. He had carved himself out a perfect, relatively stress-free assignment as a desk jockey to a fairly important, but not too important, general. He was just fine flying under the radar. Apparently, however, his reputation had preceded him. Damn that undeniably hardcore reputation of his. Vaatu came to attention as the 2-star general who had commissioned him for this assignment walked into the room. At ease, General Goodman said, walking to the two-way glass that separated the observation deck from the empty room. As you know, you just got placed in command of a brand new, never-before-tried elite team comprising of the best from the Air Force, Army, SEALs, and Marines. But there's a catch. Vaatu grimaced inwardly. There was always a catch. These 4 may be the best, but they're all lone wolf rabble-rousers. The only reason any of them are still in the military and haven't been court-martialed yet is because they are each indispensable, and they know it. They don't play nice with others. Your job is to turn them into a team and get them to work together. When you do that, they will be nigh unstoppable. I say when, not if, because you've done it before. You have quite the reputation as a malcontent regular. Vaatu narrowed his eyes. Damn his reputation. At that moment, a giant of a man walked into the room below them. Vaatu raised his eyebrows. He wasn't a small man himself, but this guy had to have had at least a couple of inches and 50 pounds of raw muscle on him. Meet Captain Jack Hammer Malone, JH for short, General Goodman said, motioning to the giant black man who was steadily taking in his surroundings. He's the best engineer I've ever seen. The man can build anything out of anything, and he's meticulous. He and another one of your new team members, as it were, Crazy Chris Sato, Sparrow for all intents and purposes, once rigged up a flying lawn chair and flew 8 injured soldiers away from enemy lines. Sato, Vaatu said, a vague memory playing in the back of his mind. He's supposed to be really good, isn't he? She is the best damn pilot the world has ever seen, General Goodman replied, no small amount of pride in his voice, as a woman as tiny as Malone was big entered the room. Vaatu's heart ground to a halt. He gripped the railing attached to the mirror so hard his knuckles turned white. I thought she was dead, he nearly whispered, not believing his eyes. We all did, General Goodman went on, not catching the obvious change in the colonel's demeanor. She was considered KIA for 10 months until she turned up out of the blue with 10 other POWs in tow and enough intel to put an entire terrorist cell on the ground. We've kept her survival on the down low. Well, I thought she was dead before you thought she was dead, Vaatu replied, not taking his eyes off Sparrow. It's not a competition, Colonel, Goodman said, raising an eyebrow at Vaatu. Vaatu shook his head. What I mean, sir, is I knew her before any of that. We have history. There was an explosion. I saw her get blown up. This history, Goodman said, eyeing Vaatu a touch suspiciously. It's not going to be a problem, is it? No, sir, Vaatu assured him quickly, looking away from Sparrow finally. Goodman nodded. Good. Below the observation deck, Sparrow and Malone were eyeing each other curiously. What are you doing here? They asked in unison, eyebrows raised, Sparrow's thick Irish brogue harmonizing with Malone's deep tones. What am I doing here? Sparrow was quick to broach whatever silence there had been. This is an Air Force base, big guy. I belong here. You're a Marine. You're a little far from home, aren't you? Apparently this is my home now, Malone grumbled. I got my new orders last week, and now I'm stationed here. I'm in the dorms until I can find a place. By the way, they don't call you lot the Chair Force for nothing. These dorms are lavish compared to the one I'm used to. Don't be jelly, H.J., Sparrow admonished him with an impish grin. Malone groaned. How many times do I have to tell you it's J.H.? How many times do I have to tell you that it's H.J.? Sparrow replied. I think I know your name a little bit better than you do, you know. Malone rolled his eyes and sighed. This is going to be one of those times where you convince my entire unit to call me H.J., isn't it? Yes, it is, Sparrow affirmed. Besides, if I'm reading this right, it looks like we're in the same unit, so it won't even be weird this time. HJ sighed again, resigned. If he had to be stuck with an entirely new unit, he could do worse than her. You know we're being observed, right? He said, subtly motioning to the two-way mirror with his eyes. Sparrow scoffed. Of course I do. I clocked them the minute I stepped into the room. I can't tell who it is, but I know there's 2 dudes in there. Probably our super secret new CEO. Oh, you got the super secret spiel too? HJ asked, raising an eyebrow. Of course I did, Sparrow replied. Why do you think I didn't tell you about my new orders? That's never stopped you before, he said incredulously. Sparrow made a face and relented. Okay, you're right. I actually lost my phone a while ago, so I couldn't tell you anyway. Again? HJ exclaimed. How many phones is that, Sparrow? I don't know, like 7? Sparrow hazarded a guess, putting her hands in her pockets. They're really small, okay? I don't know how anybody keeps track of them. I think you're just like buying new phones, HJ accused, folding his arms. I do like me some new tech, Sparrow agreed. The door opened and a muscular man walked in the room. What, we got Navy now too? HJ said incredulous. The man who had just walked in stopped in his tracks, his eyes locked on Sparrow. That's not just any Navy guy, HJ, Sparrow breathed, having gone as white as a sheet. That's Trigger. HJ's eyes got big. What, dead Trigger? Sparrow nodded, then launched herself at the man, squealing in delight. Sparrow, what the hell? Trigger exclaimed, suddenly 100 pounds heavier as Sparrow clung to him. Trigger, you're alive, she exclaimed, barely daring to believe it. What about Geek? Did he make it out too? What are you talking about? Trigger spluttered, then stilled. Wait, you thought we were actually dead? You were, Sparrow insisted. I saw the bodies. I buried the bodies. Holy shit, Trigger breathed, trying to catch his balance. I knew there was a reason you didn't meet us. Meet you where? Sparrow felt sick. We faked our deaths to get those guys off your back, Trigger told her, his voice solemn. We left you a note. I didn't get a note, Sparrow snapped, angry now. I just saw 2 burnt bodies in Geek's destroyed rig. He would never leave that behind. Oh yeah, Trigger said with a huff-like laugh. He was pissed when he realized he had forgotten it in the house after we'd set the fire. Up in the observation deck, the 2 men looked on in confusion as Sparrow continued to cling to Trigger. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, General Goodman said, brushing it off and continued. But that's Lieutenant Callan Shanks, Navy SEAL and expert munitions man, aptly nicknamed Trigger. You want something to go boom, you call him. He's also the best sniper the SEALs have. He once clocked a guy at 1,200 yards with no scope, half blind, and with a headwind. Vatu was impressed. He had heard about that shot. If he remembered correctly, that shot had saved several civilians from certain death. And rounding out your merry little band is Kai Shanks, identical twin brother to Trigger, Goodman said, introducing the newest person on the scene. He's the best hacker anyone's ever seen. He can do things with a computer that you could never dream of. He's known as Geek, but no one knows why, because he is anything but your run-of-the-mill geek. Vatu cocked his head to one side as he watched Sparrow go in for a hug for Geek, only to be roughly shoved back by him. Sparrow shifted, instantly hostile, and began to advance threateningly. Vatu nodded in satisfaction as Malone instinctively drew closer to Sparrow, ready to intervene. Voices were raised, and Malone positioned himself protectively in front of Sparrow, not because he was worried about her safety, Vatu realized, but because he was worried about Geek's. Malone seemed to know her well. Good, Vatu could work with that. At least he wouldn't be starting from scratch. I still don't know what's going on there, Goodman said, shaking his head, then motioned to the door. Shall we go meet them in person? Vatu nodded and followed the general out the door and down the stairs. As they got closer to the door where the 4 military personnel were, the angry voices got louder and louder. The two officers pulled up short of the entrance. Bite me, Vatu heard whom he only could assume was Geek, say. 2 seconds later, there was a yelp and a loud scuffling sounds. Get her off me! Geek's voice was a pitch higher than normal. Sparrow, we talked about this, came Malone's gruff voice, grunting as if trying to lift something heavy. General Goodman looked nonplussed. Am I hearing this correctly, that grown-ass woman just bit that man? Well, in her defense, General, Vatu said, shrugging, he did tell her to. Fair, Goodman said with a shrug, then sighed, indicating that Vatu walked ahead of him. You definitely have your work cut out for you, Colonel. Attention! Vatu called out as he entered the room. The massive arms and legs that were tangled together on the floor immediately pulled apart and sprang to their feet at attention. At ease, General Goodman said, coming to stand beside Vatu. The airmen and three soldiers relaxed into their at ease stances, eyes a little wide at seeing the 2-star general. No one's eyes were as wide as Sparrow's, however. Vodka? She breathed out in surprise and disbelief. HJ's head snapped to look at Sparrow, surprise etched on his face. Dead vodka? He asked for the second time in 10 minutes, concerning 2 different people. Oh, sorry. Yes, dead vodka, Sparrow hissed, then looked back at the door, bewildered. Who's going to come through that door next? My dead parents? Your great-aunt Edna? Abraham Lincoln? It's like Night of the Living Dead up in here. Anything you'd like to share with the group, Major? General Goodman asked, somewhat amused, mostly because she had referred to Colonel Vaca as vodka. No, sir, Sparrow said, staring straight ahead. Sorry, sir. There's just a whole lot of people who were dead 10 minutes ago who are not dead anymore, and I'm just a little overwhelmed. Well, settle that on your own time, Goodman told her sturdily but not harshly, then addressed the group. I'm sure you're all wondering why you're here on an Air Force base with 3 branches of the military that are not your own. Your orders were vague on purpose. You 4 have been chosen to create an elite precision unit with the sole purpose of eradicating national threats both on foreign soil and here at home. Sparrow used the slight pause to ask a question. Sir, do you mean that to me to say that we're going to be like that TV show, The Unit, only we're all different branches instead of just Army? What's the unit? Geek asked, furrowing his brows. Sparrow was about to explain when General Goodman beat her to it. The Unit is a television show about a top-secret elite unit in the Army, modeled after Delta Force, that leads covert ops, including but not limited to counter-terrorism, protection details, and hostage rescue. And yes, Major, this is exactly This unit is exactly like that. Only you'll be operating here at home as well. Bravo, General. Sparrow said, impressed. Another connoisseur of excellent television, I see. I have the whole series on DVD and bought and downloaded it on Prime, Goodman admitted, then cleared his throat. A big difference, however, is this unit will have immunity and means, which means no red tape. A mashup of the unit and Hawaii Five-0? Sparrow exclaimed, grinning delightedly. Somebody pitched me. I think I'm dreaming. Geek reached over and pinched her hard. You mother heifer, she growled, pinching him back. Ow, he hissed, rubbing his arm. Sparrow, H.J. warned, jerking his head towards the 2 higher officers. Sparrow once again turned her attention to General Goodman. Sorry, sir, she said. We're all just very excited to be here. I can see that, Goodman replied a touch sarcastically, then brought their attention to Vatu. This is Colonel Vatu Vaca, your new CEO. I see that at least one of you already knows him. It's his job to make you people a team. I've given him full permission to do whatever he sees fit to take you lone wolves and turn you into a pack. Whatever he sees fit. His methods are unorthodox at times, but he gets results. General, Geek asked, giving Sparrow an angry side-eye, how long will this posting be? If Colonel Vaca delivers, which he always does, Goodman began, nodding in appreciation to Vatu, permanent. This unit has the potential to be the best team in the entire United States military. You are all the best in your respected branches. If you can learn to work together, you'll be unstoppable. Trigger and Geek eyed Sparrow and HJ suspiciously, Sparrow and HJ doing the same to them. Vatu watched them all, a seeking feeling in the pit of his stomach. This was going to be harder than he thought. He could always see ranks being closed between the brothers and the other 2, who obviously knew each other well. Not to mention the history that his new major had with the twins. He had an inkling of who the 2 men were to AAA. He tried to think of her as Sparrow, the name she was known as now, but she would always be Triple Play O'Brien, Triple A to him, the spunky Irish mafia queen who had saved his life. But he had to put that out of his mind. Triple A had history with every single one of their new team. Vatu was yet to see if that would be a help or a hindrance. Colonel, I'll leave you to it, General Goodman said, giving a little wave and walking out the door. The 5 military personnel sized each other up silently for a moment before Vatu clapped his hands together. All right, he said. Everyone sit on the floor in a circle. Sparrow and HJ exchanged looks. Geek and Trigger did the same. Sir, you want us to sit in a circle? Sparrow ventured with an raised eyebrow. Like on the first day of kindergarten? Well, I assume that's what happened on the first day of kindergarten. I never went. This may as well be the first day of kindergarten for you all, Major, Vatu replied, motioning for them to sit on the floor, because you are all going to be relearning everything that you ever knew about being a team. Now sit. Crisscross applesauce, if you will. The 4 new team members sat, each unsure what to think. They had never experienced a new posting like this. Once they were all situated in a circle, Vatu addressed them again. Okay, we're going to do introductions now. Really get to know each other. Introductions, sir? Geek asked incredulously. Was this guy for real? Yes, Lieutenant, Vatu said, his voice having somewhat of an edge to it. We are all going to get vulnerable and tell each other who we are, what makes us tick, and since there is obviously something going on between you, your brother, and Triple, we are going to explain how we may or may not know each other. Triple? HJ mouthed to Sparrow, who gave him an I'll tell you later look and hand motion. I'll go first, Vatu said, ignoring Sparrow and HJ. My name is Vatu Vaca. I was a crack baby. My grandma found me crawling around the floor of a crack house playing with needles next to my dead OD'd mom when I was 7 months old. The 4 teammates stared at Vatu wide-eyed. That was... HJ began, not knowing what more to say. A lot more than we expected, Trigger finished for him. Vatu just shrugged. Of course it was, he said. That's not something I share with just anyone. I know we're strangers now, well, relatively, but we need to know everything about each other so we know why we do the things we do and why we're going to react the way we do. Now, because you guys know my origins, when you notice this weird tick I have, you'll know why. When I tell you that I followed in my mother's footsteps and became a junkie gangbanger at age 14, you'll know why I'm fiercely protective of my gran, because she is the one who stayed up with me for 3 days while I screamed and vomited and cried while I detoxed when I was 17. You'll know why the Air Force is the best thing that ever happened to me because it got me and eventually her away from that neighborhood. You'll know why I'll punch somebody in the face. You know why I punch somebody in the face if they mouth off about veterans in the military in any way. As a team, we need to know what is going to set each other off and what they're going to do when they are set off. And we need to know how we know each other. You may have noticed that Sparrow had a fairly visceral reaction when she saw me. I had the same reaction when I saw her. Triplet, would you like to tell the story or should I? You can, Sparrow said, then narrowed her eyes. But maybe don't share everything, yeah? I'll be discreet, Vaatu said, hiding a smile. Were you guys banging? Geek asked bluntly, folding his arms. Sparrow groaned. That's kind of what I didn't want him to share, she said, then shrugged. But now it's out there, yes. We made lots of sweet, sweet love. On a park bench, under an Olive Garden table, in the Statue of Liberty, the list goes on. Vaatu looked amused. The other three looked uncomfortably disgusted. What? Sparrow shocked back. You asked. Yes, Vaatu cut in. Triplet and I were an item. As you may have guessed, I didn't know her as Sparrow. I knew her as Triplet O'Brien, niece to the notoriously vicious Irish Mafia boss and head of the American branch of that. You were heading the Irish Mafia the entire time we were together? Geek exclaimed, surprise and hurt etched on his face. You knew that, Sparrow replied, giving him a look like that should have been obvious. I thought you were a doctor or something. I didn't know it was murdering people and drug dealing, Geek huffed indignantly. I was a doctor. Well, I am a doctor, Sparrow defended. One of the youngest ever, actually. Maybe a genius and all. But before that, when we got back to America, did you think our nice place and stuff and all the stuff I got you guys just came out of nowhere? Besides, it was mostly gun running and only a little murdering. Personally, I just assumed you stole all that stuff. Trigger mused, cocking his head. Some of it was liberated, Sparrow admitted, but most of it was bought with honest hard work. Well, maybe not so honest, but hard work nonetheless. Anyway, Vaatu interrupted, bringing the conversation back to his topic. I first met, anyway, and that's all I have now. Sorry, that was a little longer than I thought, but that's what I was working on. And so, anyway, I hope everybody is working hard on their own challenge and that everything is good. Okay, goodbye for now.